Right.
I mean, Texas will win this game. I mean, I want it to be a good game, but actually, I don't want it to be a good game.
I don't want to sweat this
I like Bo
one out at all.
Pelini because he coached here at Iowa in 1991, but let's go Texas.
I think another interesting point, too, is Zach Lee got banged up against Colorado. If he's not 100%, I don't think Nebraska has any chance. He's a team leader on there on offense. He may not put up the best numbers, but he's a team leader and the team rallies around him. So he's got to have a strong game, and Nebraska's got to limit turnovers.
And you mentioned Nebraska playing their best football of the year. I absolutely agree with that. You have to go back to holding Oklahoma to 3 points. This is an Oklahoma team that was very hot and cold, but they just beat Oklahoma State 27-0. Granted, it was in Lincoln. You know, they've shown that they can step up to the table and play good defense against a high-powered offense. But, you know, it doesn't matter if they're playing their best football of the year. I think Texas has this one, and I will be strongly rooting against Nebraska.
And I think it's interesting to bring up the Oklahoma game because that was a great showcase game for their defense. They made Landry Jones throw 5 interceptions, and their only points off the game were on drives that were sustained after interceptions. One of their interceptions returned to the 5-yard line. That's where they got their only touchdown. Their only field goal was off a drive where they got favorable field position because of the interceptions. And so that's what they're going to need in this Texas game if they even want to compete. But I think could be close if they get the turnovers like we've been talking about. But let's go to the ACC now. Boy, the ACC looks bad after last week. Their top 2 teams lost to 6-5 SEC teams. Georgia Tech lost at home to Georgia, a team that's 6-5. Wow. Mike, is this defendable?
Yeah, it's not defendable. You know, it's hard. The ACC is up and down. I think last year they got a lot of criticism. They went 5-3 in bowl games. I think this year we'll see a similar trait. They had struggles at the end of the year. They don't have great records, but they'll show up in bowl games and win some. These two teams are very evenly matched. We saw that earlier this year. Georgia Tech jumps out to a huge lead in Atlanta. Clemson comes back, roars back to take the lead in the fourth quarter, and then Georgia Tech wins 30-27. I think these teams are very evenly matched. I think Clemson has a better defense. That's why Clemson wins this game. Kyle Parker's grown, an offense has grown into that quarterback position. C.J. Spiller wants a little redemption after that loss to South Carolina. And I know they both lost the rivalry games, but I think they're going to brush those off. They're going to come out and play strong. But I think Clemson kind of shocks the world a little bit. I think everybody still thinks Georgia Tech's going to win the game. Clemson's defense steps up to the plate, looks at that second half tape from the game earlier in the year in Atlanta, and Clemson wins the game by a touchdown.
Jordan.
You know, that it is 2 very evenly matched teams. I think Georgia Tech had a big letdown last week against Georgia, and I think that they'll be able to rebound though. I love the program going on right now down at Georgia Tech, and you know, Clemson. You know, they had a very strong second half after they kind of had to wake up. But I know we've all seen the YouTube video, that kid, the Clemson fan, going nuts. Same thing is going to happen this weekend. You know, I'm not extremely confident. I'm not supremely confident in this Georgia Tech team, but I think they can do it. They can get the job done. You know, that's a team that talk about, you know, taking things 1 week at a time. That Georgia Tech team, 1 play at a time. They just wear away, chip away at some of these ACC teams, and you know, unfortunately for Mr. Sweeney, I think it's going to be another win for Georgia Tech.
You know, and I know the ACC championship game doesn't get a lot of fans there, but Clemson's fans travel well, and Georgia Tech's don't. So watch out for Clemson to have a little home field advantage out there with the fans. Watch out.
Georgia Tech's fans will travel well too. Why? Because Georgia Tech hasn't won the ACC since 1990. Clemson hasn't won it since 1991. So there's going to be a lot of fans there hungry for a championship. Now, I think this is really a coin flip, to be honest, because the game was so close that was played on Thursday night earlier in the season. And then you take a look at the defense of Clemson, but yet the offense of Georgia Tech. I'm going to go Georgia Tech. I really don't have a good reason, but I just have a feeling that their offense is just going to get it done, man. But I do think C.J. Spiller is one of the best players in college football. Might get a little Heisman consideration if he has a good game this Saturday. Now on to the SEC. Alabama taking on Florida, and for the first time in 35 years, we have a team that has had back-to-back undefeated seasons in the SEC. Alabama 12-0 last year, Alabama 12-0 again this year. But Jordan, does Alabama actually win this year?
I don't know. You know, you look at their performances that they had this past weekend. You know, Alabama had to sweat one out against Auburn, which is a good Auburn team. You know, that was a close game. It's a rivalry game, the Iron Bowl, a great game. Those 2 teams go at it every year. Florida was playing a very hindered Florida State team without their leader, Christian Ponder, their best player, Christian Ponder. And Florida State just walked into the Tim Tebow ceremony of death, basically, is what happened out in Gainesville. And I think Florida really didn't. That just wasn't as good of a game as I thought it was going to be. But Florida will, I think, I don't know. It's just this one's a toss-up. I've been going back and forth in my head about it. I'd like to think Alabama would not let Florida do this to them 2 years in a row. But you have to look at Tim Tebow. I know we're all sick of hearing about it, but you look at what he has done at Florida, and this is his chance to just finish on top. And it's just hard to picture Florida losing this game. That's what it comes down to. I'm going to be rooting for Bama, but I'm going to pick Florida because it's hard to see Tim Tebow, the rest of that senior class, Brandon Spikes at Florida, allowing themselves to lose this game. It's just, I can't picture it. Florida wins.
Go. Bama. Bama's going to win this game. Shock the world. Everybody's on Tim Tebow's train. He's a great player. He might be one of the best players in college football history. They've got both these defenses match up 1 and 2 in the country. They both have solid offenses. The key for me, I think, Alabama having to come back against Auburn, battle back, last-minute drive, making plays. Mark Ingram shows why he should be at least the number 1 or number 2 guy.
How did he do last week?
He had a rough
yeah. How did he do last week? Okay.
32 on 6.
I still think
That's right.
I still
Okay.
think he definitely deserves to be in consideration over Tim Tebow for sure. Maybe not Toby Gerhart, but I think.
Oh my God! Please don't start this discussion. Toby Gerhart is more deserving of Ingram.
No, I said he may be under.
Oh, under.
Yeah.
Okay. Ingram. Okay.
But I do think Alabama actually wins this game, shocks the world. This is one of the people. A lot of people are going to disagree, but I think Alabama comes in this year. They're prepared. They were leading in the fourth quarter last year. Tim Tebow had his miracle run. Tim Tebow actually hasn't had too many comeback victories in his career. I think he's only got 2 at Florida, and he's lost 4 or 5 other ones. If Alabama gets the lead, sustains it in the fourth quarter, they win it this year. Roll Tide.
Why does Tim Tebow not have a lot of comeback victories? Because they're always in the lead.
He's 2-5 when they're down in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, but you know what? This is the winningest senior class in the history of SEC football at Florida. 47-6. In the great history of the SEC, the greatest conference in the history of mankind, they're 47-6. That's the most ever. The most wins, the least losses ever. So, you can talk about, Tim Tebow, blah, 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 about, no, he doesn't come back. But you know what? I think Florida's going to win. Now, I think Alabama is a great football team. I think they're the second best team in college football. I really do. I picked them to win the West at the beginning of the year. I picked Florida to win the East at the beginning of the year. So this is what I've envisioned all year. And I think this is really a dream matchup for college football fans because this is good for the game, 1 versus 2, to go to the BCS title game. I think it's great for college football. But let's talk about Florida's defense. That's what we haven't talked about yet. They've only surrendered 11 touchdowns all season. That's less than 1 per game. They're the only team in college football that can say that. And the second best defense in this category has had 4 more touchdowns they've given up all year, and that's the second best. So this Florida defense is good. Alabama's defense is good too, but Florida's is better. They also allow the fewest points per game in the nation. So Florida's defense will get it done. Alabama's a great team, don't get me wrong. They're going to come and they're going to play their guts out, but I just see Florida winning this game. And, I hate the way the media pampers Tim Tebow, so it's hard for me to say this. I'm going to be rooting for Alabama, but I think Florida gets it done.
With my prediction of Florida, I will say Roll Tide, and I hope
they win.
I hope they shock.
I think everyone's building up Florida a little bit more because they've blown out their last 2 opponents. Florida State was pathetic at the end of the season. At least Auburn, I know they don't have the greatest record, but at least they competed in most of their football games this year, and they came out in that rivalry game and gave everything they could.
I gave no credit to the Florida State win. Florida State's not a good football team. I didn't give them any credit.
I know. I just think everybody's jumping on that little bandwagon at the end. Tebow, there's gonna be a lot of hype around Tebow, and I don't know if it'll affect him or not. It'll be interesting. Like I said,
we saw how the hype affected Ingram last week.
Fourth quarter. Well, Glenn Coffey.
Amateur hour.
Glenn Coffey ran all over the Gator defense last year. So
who won?